Scientists now believe that the regular consumption of asparagus can reduce the risk of road accidents. During the Crusades, the Christian armies fighting in the Holy Land could be smelled 6 miles away. Some of their attacks, therefore, failed as they lacked the all-important element of surprise. The Malaysian hatchet fish is the only vertebrate in the animal kingdom with its ears on its wrists. Donald Rumsfeld, the US Secretary of Defense, has never played table tennis. None of this is strictly relevant to this evening's proceedings, but it does go to show how your mind wanders when you're nervous. And I am nervous for several reasons. First, because when I arrived at the hotel last night, something happened that was weird, but I'll tell you about that later. Second, I'm nervous because this is quite an international gathering, and I'm not sure how many of you really know who I am. You see, in America, it's only really the PBS audience that knows me well, but I just want to tell you that I am quite a celebrity in Northern Europe and Australasia. And seriously well known in the UK. In fact, genuinely famous in a lot of southern England, especially the southwestern part around Bristol and North Somerset, and particularly in Weston-super-Mare around Clarence Park and St Paul's Church and Walliscote Road, where I am absolutely huge. Third, I am this evening addressing an audience of semiconductor patentees, and I know less than anyone in this room about semiconductors, and indeed less than anyone in this room knows about this subject. In fact, until yesterday I thought a semiconductor was someone in charge of half an orchestra. So this speech is violating the basic principle that the speaker should have some information that his audience does not already possess. Fourth, I'm anxious that I may have trouble communicating with you this evening because I heard a conversation in the bar last night. It went like this: "Hi, Bob. What's new? LMC 6548 A to D. CMOS 10? VIP ton. VGA? No. TSOP. TSMC? Spore. Q3? Q4. NDPW? DOA. Luckily, I was sitting with Bob Pease, who speaks a little English, and he translated it for me. "Hi, Bob, what's new? I'm screwed." And finally, I'm anxious because I have been told that this is the highest IQ audience that has ever been assembled in one room in the history of the world. That is, of course, since last year's event. So I'm worried why you're wondering why a British comic is lecturing a group of engineering geniuses, because I don't know. Personally, I think it's a mistake. You see, if you touch-type the name Bill Gates, but your hands are one key over to the right, you get JONNCLASE, and then someone who watches PBS corrects it, and I get the telephone call, except obviously Bill wouldn't be speaking to you for what I'm getting paid. So perhaps it isn't a mistake and I am supposed to be here. Well, if so, it must be because you want me to play the role of court jester. Now, jesters, as you know, were employed by the rich and powerful in medieval times, and the point of them was that they could say things that nobody else could and survive. And they went around the court teasing everyone in turn, saying to each noble something that everyone else wanted to say to them but couldn't without starting a civil war. And everyone laughed at the court jester's comments, including the victim, or rather, especially the victim, because he would lose face if he got offended, and then afterwards he'd probably think about why everyone laughs so much at that reference to B.O. So that the jester was a kind of public psychiatrist whose job it was to say in an acceptable way things that might otherwise have offended. So if you've asked me here tonight as jester, obviously you want me to be acceptably offensive. I'll try. It won't be easy. I'll have to struggle against my British upbringing, the central principle of which is to apologize indiscriminately at every opportunity. This is because the average English middle-class person's main aim in life is to get safely into their graves without ever having been seriously embarrassed. Tonight I shall cast aside my conditioning and be as insulting as I can. In fact, I'll see if at some point I can call you all assholes. I know this always puts Americans at their ease. Before I actually do call you assholes, I think I should sort of warm you up by first calling you geeks. Hello, geeks. Actually, before I start with the geek insults, I want to make sure that everyone here is a geek or is with a geek. So I'm going to ask 20 questions, and if you would answer no to any of them, please leave the hall immediately. Only 100% yes answers